but the great Lou Merloni from New York. Hi, Lou.
Well, good morning, everybody. How are we doing today?
What a night last night.
Wow. Yeah, it was, it was just like kind of brought back to old school. Listen, I played at a time when we had Clemens versus Pedro, and last night kind of like Fried, Crochet, different era, but just sort of like you knew you were going to get that kind of game. Like Fried was awesome. Crochet was awesome, even better. Like it was just, there's nothing better than listening to a quiet Yankee Stadium leaving. Nothing better.
Lou, they asked Crochet about this, and you probably could give a better insight about him being able to pitch a lot more innings and wanting to do it like guys used to do it back in the day. But he said because of his velocity, he didn't think that he could do it. Is he throwing a lot harder now than, guys like Clemens and, Pedro and guys that we think about that pitched a bunch of innings? Is he throwing a lot harder than those guys were?
I still think there are guys that threw the ball real hard. I mean, you even go back even before my era, maybe not as many. Listen, I played with Pedro. He's 97, 98, so for a little guy, Roger, maybe 95, 97, that type of thing. I mean, so Verlander, another guy that could crank it up to 98, 99. And even back in the day, those guys that throwing the ball in high 90s, it's just there weren't as many, So I don't know about the whole error thing. I try to stay out of the error thing, but it's been impressive, for a guy that was like last year, the White Sox sort of like were just trying to be careful with him. They did the Red Sox a favor with how they monitored his innings last year in the second half, almost gave him like a foundation year to sort of like they were doing somebody a favor. They knew they were trading him. They wanted him to get him ready and build them up to 142. So the following year he could go 200 innings for somebody, not them. So you got to give them a lot of credit with how they used him last year.
Lou, I have to say, awesome year, by the way, best in Boston, you know that. But if you switch the managers yesterday, do you think the game's different?
Listen, I like Aaron Boone. I think he takes a lot of heat. I just don't think there's many better than Cora, especially in the postseason. And listen, I know that he's taken a lot of heat for Fried, right? Pulling Fried and bringing in Weaver. I don't know. I was just watching that game. We were even talking about it. Like he was starting to look different. Like he was completely dominant, and all of a sudden he just sort of lost the off-speed pitches, the location. His misses were really, really bad. You could see him tiring, and it was 99 pitches. He went to his guy. I think every single manager from this point on in the postseason, if you bring in a reliever and they do their job, you look very smart. No matter when it is. If you bring in a reliever and he doesn't do his job, you're going to be questioned and you're an idiot. Like tonight, like Brian Bayo, the rest, if it's not Garrett Crochet, Cora's going to be aggressive. And it could be 4 innings, 4 1/3, 4 2/3. Maybe it's Greg Weissert early in the game. Maybe it's Slayton to get out of a jam. If Slayton doesn't give it up, why did you pull Bayo? So I feel like everybody gets this when the bottom line is Luke Weaver didn't do his job. So you got to be better.
How petty do the Yankees look for trying to prevent an entire fan base in a state from buying tickets to a playoff game?
Yeah. It's I think I've seen it before in sports. 'Cause I remember this story coming up before. I think
it was the Colts. It was Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah. I think Courtney said it too because it was like Yankee Red Sox fans there, right, who still live in the area. Like if we happened to do this, there would be Yankee fans living in Boston, so couldn't keep everybody out. But it was interesting because little Birdie did tell me that because of it, they had 6,000 or 7,000 tickets unsold, and in the very last minute put out very cheap tickets to make sure that thing was sold out. It kind of backfired on them.
Huh. Lou, if they can't get it done tonight and they've got to play tomorrow, do you think Connolly Early is the guy, and do you have confidence in that?
I do think it's early. The funny thing is to be honest with you, after watching this kid and just kind of being around him, kind of just as much confidence as him and Giolito. Because Lucas was just wasn't himself the last couple of outings. There was a lot of walks. The velocity was way down. And I think no matter who it is, whether it's Giolito or Early, it's going to be 2 times through the order and just go hitter to hitter after that. The problem with Giolito is that you just thinned your whole rotation out. You thinned your whole pitching situation out. I mean, if you get by this round and you go to a game, like a 5-game series, a 7-game series, you don't want 12 pitchers. You need to have 13. You need to have 14. The problem is, I don't know if they have a healthy arm to even activate. That's the problem moving forward. Like Dustin May is probably the guy that will be added if they were to move forward. You've tested out your depth in your pitching department here. So Early, I feel comfortable with him. I mean, the guy's got 5 pitches. He throws for strikes. I think he can handle the moment. It's just that you're really, really thin, and you could have used Early maybe out of a bullpen in this series instead.
Lou, one of the interesting things last night is, and they talked about maybe a little strategy in the game, when Chapman came out in the 8th, and then the Yankees kind of they took a little bit longer to kind of keep him on the bench because it seems like he really needs to be warmed up. And it almost looked like that when he faced his first 3 batters, which he loaded the bases, but then he got to that Chapman form. Does he really need that, like, you can't have any time between him and his, like, kind of pitching?
No, I think that he only done four outs a few times this year, and you kind of don't do that so he can do it this time of year. First off, I love that move. I know Whitlock was out there, but they had a very good left-handed hitter in Ben Rice on the bench that they would have hit for Caballero. So you bring Whitlock in, and now you're bringing a good hitter who can leave the yard and who will be in there tonight. So that's why you go to Chapman right away. It got a little hairy, and he's at times this year come in throwing 95, 96, strike one. They knew it. He was throwing strike one more than he has in the past. I think they swung at 5 or 6 of the first 7 pitches he threw in that 9th inning. But listen, it's the playoffs. I expect him to be available here tonight again, and I expect him hopefully to be out on the mound and close this thing out.
Lou, how much credit do you give Alex Cora for where they are right now and how well they've been playing?
Yeah, I think he's had an outstanding year. And I know, when you live baseball day to day and you react day to day and you're watching a baseball game, and, let's face it, I get it. Like, not everybody watches every game, but you're sort of watching it going, okay, why isn't Whitlock in? Why isn't Chapman in? And you don't realize that maybe they've thrown 3 of the last 4 days, and that's why, because he has to manage 162. He can't manage a nightly basis thing. And he's had a very young, very inexperienced team. I mean, the veterans on this team are Bregman, Story, and Ref Schneider, who's a role player, and it ends there. Duran's in his 3rd year as a starter. He's kind of getting there. So I just think managing these young players. I mean, yesterday, how much heat would he take, for starting Nate Eaton, Nick Sogard, in a playoff game against Max Fried? He's going to do it again tonight against Rodon if they had lost. How much heat would he have taken for allowing Nick Sogard to hit if he into a double play and didn't hit a double? But yeah. He knows his players, he knows his team, and in the playoffs, he's now 18-8. So I think that kind of says it all.
18-8, and Sox 9 of 10 in their last 10 playoff games against the Yankees. Wild.
Yeah.
Could you? You're the Sox historian as well. Could you rank?
That's Buckley.
That's true. Sorry, Buck. You're probably sleeping at the Marriott, but good morning.
I go about as far back as about 3 days ago, to be honest with you. Too many concussions, Curtis.
Oh, Lou, don't sell yourself short. But Beckett, Lester, and Crochet, where do you rank those 3 in terms of aces entering in the postseason?
Boy, Lester was such a workhorse, and I tell you what, Beckett was at 07. He was almost unhittable. Yeah. What we saw last night I just felt was different. Well, what's been put on Crochet's shoulders all year long is just different. It's man, he gave it the home run to Volpe and then retired 16 straight in Yankee Stadium. Oh. His first appearance in the postseason, his first time throwing 200 innings. You're worried about him getting tired down the stretch. We started hearing that in September. He doesn't look right. Meanwhile, he was just giving up homers, which is a problem but some of the numbers under the hood, swing and miss, his stuff was even better than it had been all year long. He never looks tired to me. Even last night, you pulled him at 117 pitches. The last pitch he threw was 100.2. It tied the highest pitch, the fastest pitch he'd thrown all year. I haven't seen too many workhorses like this guy, and what he did this year, kind of out of nowhere, and out of nowhere just meaning the innings limit, and still being strong last night. It was just that was fun to watch. He's an absolute. Well, he is. He's a pig, is what he is. He's filthy.
And I love him arguing with Alex Cora before the game about when he's going to have to make the call to the bullpen. I love a guy like that.
Yeah, and I like his answer too. He's like, it's just arrogance. I mean, they asked him yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever it was, that media thing about did you ever envision yourself being here, starting this type of game? And he's like, yeah, I did. This is what I do. This is what I want to do. I don't understand the question.
Lou, when you look at this team and you start to look around the rest of the playoff bracket, do you think that this team has a legitimate chance of winning the whole thing?
I would never count this team out. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I do. I worry about the pitching depth, because I know what this run, could look like. You need to win 13 games, and right now you have 2 starters, and Conley Early, who I feel good about. So I think you have 3 starters. But if you win this series, you'll be going to Toronto and you'll have a bullpen game. There's no way to avoid it. In a 5-game series, you'll have a bullpen game. So in a 7-game series, do you have a bullpen game? Do you have 2? So there's just no way to avoid that. And I think the depth is really being tested. Now, we actually saw Texas. I kind of feel like Texas won a World Series with Eovaldi and Montgomery. And they had openers. They had just 2 guys. So now it's up to Bayo, who's had great success here in New York. If you have 2 guys that are that dominant that when they take the ball, you win, that can go a long, long way. It's just a very taxing on a rotation. That's the only concern I have, is the depth of the arms they have right now in this starting rotation.
Well, and when they use Connolly early, can anybody overrule the analytics guys, and can you count on him to eat up innings?
Well, I don't. If he gets pulled 2 times through, that's not going to be analytics. That is going to be history with the kid. They've pulled him at 70, 75 pitches, and everyone's like, he's looked sharp. Why pull him?
Yeah.
Last outing, they let him go after 70, 75, and he gave it up. And he walked some guys, and he didn't look right. So it's still his second year in pro ball. That last time was the first time he'd ever thrown on 4 days rest in the minor leagues. They have every Monday off. They always go on 5 or 6. So all of this is new. The usage is new. It's how many times he goes. I would be shocked if he goes game 3 and goes more than 70, 75 pitches. Doesn't matter how much, how good he looks, because it's just, first off, it's playoffs. Like Bayo. Bayo's a guy that if he goes 5, I think you'll be ecstatic. Just because I think, especially what Crochet did, he's going to be aggressive with that bullpen.
I saw you post yesterday on X about Major League Baseball and the ratings, the attendance, and the social media views being way up, which is awesome for the game, Lou.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I'm curious, too, last night, what would that number be, nationally? Sox, Yanks, 6 o'clock. The game, the way it was going, Fried, Crochet, the way it ended. That's probably going to be a big number for wild card history as far as where they went. But the game's popular, and hopefully everybody realizes that next year, because that's one thing we're going to hear an awful lot about is this new CBA. Hopefully everybody's on the same page, and hopefully clear minds can kind of get together and talk this thing through, because that's one way to ruin a good thing, is to kind of not have baseball for a bit.
Speaking of social media, I saw you eating bacon, in honor of last night. Crispy, yours looked a bit floppy last night.
Save that.
Yeah. Lou is a flop guy. I guarantee it.
No, I'll say this. I'm not a guy that, pre-orders my bacon, right? I'm just a guy that sits back and just is disappointed if it's sloppy. I'm not going to lie to you. But I also sometimes I feel like when I say, "Can you make it crispy?" It comes out burnt, and I want to throw it out the window.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Soft is always better.
No, soft is gross.
No, it's not.
No.
Yeah, see, I hate soft. I'm not going to lie to you. It's got to be it's sweet. There's a sweet spot. I need some crisp. But whenever I say extra crispy, it comes out burnt, and I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't want this. So sometimes I just leave it to fate, Courtney. I really do. I just sort of sit back and say, you know what? Maybe I pick and choose. When you got a double order, you pick the crispy ones, you leave the rest.
I like it.
What's on tap food-wise today? A little New York slice, maybe, or what are we?
Well, I think right now I'm going to start my day off with a little Essa bagel.
Ooh.
Which is absolutely outstanding, but you got to pre-order because there's like 460 people in line here in New York in the mornings. So I'll settle in there a little bit. But, yeah, did a little lunch yesterday, which kind of killed 2 hours, which was a good thing. I may have to try to find that spot again because if I'm just sort of like done with my morning and it's like noon and I'm leaving at 2:30, 3 o'clock, like there's too much dead time there for me. I don't know what to do with myself. I definitely can see a walk coming at some point here in the city in the early morning. So do a little walk the dog, even though I have no dog. I'll just grab some New Yorker and just walk him.
And just be careful where you're walking. Careful in the Bronx.
And looking ahead to this evening, Bayo has pitched well at Yankee Stadium this season. So that's something to look forward to. Yeah,
it has. And it will be interesting, too, because Rodon has not thrown well against the Red Sox this year. And he's had a great year. Fried, on the other hand, has dominated the Red Sox. He's completely thrown the ball well all year long. But Rodon hasn't. I would expect a very similar lineup, probably the same lineup. We'll see if he goes back with Durant in left field or if he moves somebody else in there. But Ref Schneider, then Yoshida DHs, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But, Bayo's thrown the ball real well. But he's thrown the ball real well because he's located. He has put the ball where he needs to be. This lineup can be pitched to if you locate. If you miss, you can give up 3 or 4 homers in a hurry. That's the danger of the Yankees. But it can be pitched to. If he locates, he's good. If not, you give up a couple of home runs here, you got some problems. But he's thrown the ball well here. So we'll see how it goes tonight.
Could get ugly tonight if the Sox win. Lou, quickly, do you believe Aaron Boone is back if the Sox win tonight?
Boy, there's going to be a lot of heat. I don't know. Listen, I think he should be back. I know Yankee fans absolutely hate this guy, but, I don't know. I think their roster is what it is. They hit homers, and they put a great bullpen together. And some guys have not thrown the ball well. Guys with history have just not. Like Devin Williams, is it his fault that Devin Williams has had a really bad year? Maybe it is. Maybe it's the pitching coach's fault. But I think the pitching coach did a good job with Fried and Rodon, and Schlittler and some of these other guys that have been that have been in this rotation. So I think sometimes you got to put some heat on the players. To be honest with you, especially in this game.
Lou, we will let you get to work, and we will be listening this evening. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time with us. You're the best.
All right, peeps. Thanks a lot. Appreciate everything. And Coco, congrats.
Thank
really
you.
Happy for you guys.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
I appreciate the fact that you are offering her congratulations because she literally said to you moments ago, Lou, yours looked a little floppy. I think that was
it's about the bacon. Yours looked a bit floppy. Okay. Head's out of the gutter. Jeez Louise.
Thank you, Lou.
You got it. Anytime.
Lou, we'll see you. That is the great Lou Merloni.